All right, let's dig into a story that really shaped how we think about business today.
Oh,
The rise and fall of Standard Oil.
definitely.
You shared this episode of the American Scandal podcast with me
Mm-hmm.
called Break Up Big Oil. And wow, it's a crazy story.
It is.
So we're going back to the late 1800s,
Okay.
the time of, those robber barons
Right.
and all that crazy competition,
Absolutely.
especially in the oil industry, which is just booming.
It was a time of incredible innovation and also just rampant exploitation.
Yeah.
At the heart of it all
Mm-hmm.
is John D. Rockefeller.
Of course.
This mastermind behind Standard Oil.
Yeah, and to understand how he was able to build this whole empire, we really have to start with his early life, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the podcast really emphasized this lesson his father taught him: never trust anyone completely.
Right.
It's almost like creepy how much that shaped his worldview.
It's so fascinating though, right?
Yeah.
Such an interesting look into his mindset.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about being cautious either.
Right.
It really fueled this drive in him to control every single aspect of his business.
Yeah, and you can see that from the start.
Yeah.
From the very beginning,
Oh.
he starts out as this super meticulous bookkeeper,
Mm-hmm.
then moves on to being a shrewd produce trader.
Okay.
Always looking for an edge,
Totally. Yeah. Always trying to get one over.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Those early experiences really honed his business skills,
right,
showed how ambitious he was. It's like he was meant for something bigger,
right.
and the oil industry gave him the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, then he starts his first oil refinery
Okay.
partnership with Samuel Andrews.
Mhm.
They were really riding that wave of the kerosene demand during
Yeah.
the Civil War.
Right.
But Rockefeller, I mean, he wasn't content with just being one player among many.
No, definitely not.
This is where we see the beginnings of that whole monopoly strategy.
Right.
It's not just about making oil. He wants to control every single part of it.
Oh, wow.
From drilling to refining to transportation to distribution.
So that's what is it?
It's vertical integration.
Vertical integration.
Oh, yeah, right.
Cutting out the middleman.
Yeah.
Control the entire supply chain.
Like Amazon.
Exactly like Amazon.
right.
You see it today with companies like that.
Totally.
Rockefeller was like a pioneer of this approach.
Wow.
He knew that if he owned every step of the process,
Yeah,
he could maximize his profits and squeeze out everyone else.
that makes sense.
And the podcast really captured the chaos of the early oil industry in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
All these tiny little producers, none of them had the resources or even the vision to match up to Rockefeller.
Right.
It's almost like he was made to take advantage of that situation.
Yeah, it seems like he just saw the potential right away.
Right.
And then that oil gusher in Pit Hole, Pennsylvania in 1865.
Okay.
That totally solidified his belief in the future of oil. He knew he was right. He was all in.
Yeah. And that's when he forms Standard Oil, brings everything together,
Right.
sets the stage for him to totally dominate the industry.
Yeah, he was definitely ruthless.
Yeah.
But there is this other side to the story.
Right.
This voice of resistance pops up.
Okay.
Ida Tarbell.
Ida Tarbell.
You've heard of her, right?
Yeah.
Daughter of an oil barrel producer.
Mhm.
And she saw all the ups and downs of the industry firsthand.
Oh, wow. So she's right there in it.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been, can you imagine?
I know. It's an amazing perspective.
Yeah.
Imagine her growing up in the middle of the oil boom, all these
Right.
people coming in to make their fortune.
Uh-huh.
Everyone's talking about money and taking risks.
Yeah.
But then there's also this sense of greed and danger lurking underneath.
Right.
It really clashed with her father's more idealistic view of things.
Interesting.
And the podcast really brought out this contrast between her father's optimism about the industry
Mm.
and Ida's growing skepticism. It's almost like she was, meant to challenge the system that her father believed in.
Yeah,
It's a really cool dynamic.
it is.
And it sets the stage for her whole investigation into Standard Oil,
Uh-oh.
which becomes her life's work.
Wow.
And then you have the South Improvement Company.
Okay.
This is straight out of a spy movie.
Okay.
This secret meeting between Rockefeller
No.
and this railroad guy, Peter H. Watson.
Okay.
They come up with this plan to crush their competition.
Oh, wow.
It was brilliant, but it was also ruthless.
So what was it?
This secret alliance to manipulate shipping rates. So they
Ah.
jack up the prices for everyone but Standard Oil.
Oh, wow.
Imagine you're a small producer
Right.
just trying to scrape by,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden your transportation costs go through the roof
Right.
while Standard Oil gets a free pass.
Oh, man. No wonder people started calling Rockefeller a robber baron.
He was using his power to, like, rig the game.
Totally.
He wasn't playing to win. He was playing to, like, eliminate everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, the podcast mentioned how obsessed he was with gathering information about his competitors.
Yeah.
Like every little detail about their shipments, their operations.
Yeah.
It was like a game of chess where people's livelihoods are at stake.
Absolutely. And this is where Ida Tarbell's story and Rockefeller's story really start to come together.
Okay.
She's in her 20s now.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact of the South Improvement Company on her family,
Right.
her community,
Yeah.
it's devastating.
Wow. So imagine all that anger and frustration,
Yeah.
all those independent producers facing ruin because of these shady practices.
Yeah, and this is where her personal experience really fuels her passion for journalism.
Okay, so it's like this wildfire of resentment is starting to burn,
Right.
and Ida Tarbell is about to fan the flames.
Exactly. And that's where we'll pick up next time.
Oh, can't wait.
All right, we'll see you then.
Okay.
Okay, so last time we were talking about how Rockefeller's South Improvement Company was causing a ton of trouble.
Yeah, a total mess.
Ida Tarbell was seeing how badly it was hurting her community.
Right.
It seemed like everyone was turning against him.
Oh, yeah, people were furious.
I mean, understandably.
Yeah, the backlash was huge,
Mm-hmm.
and it happened so fast.
Yeah.
Word got out about that secret deal with the railroads,
Right.
and the independent producers, they were outraged.
Well, yeah.
They knew it was just this blatant attempt to, like, control the market, crush the
Totally.
competition. It was like the Wild West of business.
Right.
But with Rockefeller as both the outlaw and the sheriff, you know?
Yeah, trying to control the whole game.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but they did face consequences, right?
Right, so all this public pressure builds up.
Yeah.
They start investigating the South Improvement Company.
Okay.
And in the end, the Pennsylvania legislature actually revoked their charter.
Oh, wow. So they shut them down.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big setback for Rockefeller.
Yeah, it was a setback.
Did he just give up on controlling the oil industry then?
Oh, no, not at all.
So what did he do?
He was way too adaptable for that.
Okay.
He was always like 3 steps ahead.
So instead of these secret deals and manipulating the shipping rates, he had a new strategy,
Right.
consolidation.
He started buying up his competitors.
Oh, wow.
A lot of times using pretty aggressive tactics.
So like playing Monopoly in real life.
Yeah, basically creating a real-life monopoly.
Except instead of like colorful money,
Right.
it's real wealth and power.
Yeah, he'd go to these independent producers with an offer they couldn't refuse.
Oh, wow.
It was sell to Standard Oil or risk getting crushed in the market.
So not really a friendly takeover.
Yeah, more like a hostile takeover.
Rockefeller was just using his power to force those smaller companies into giving in.
It's a good reminder that even in a free market,
Yeah.
there can be these massive power imbalances.
And the podcast really emphasized how calculated it all was.
Oh, yeah.
This strategy of expansion and dominance.
Analyze the competitors, find their weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
then exploit them.
He was a master negotiator.
all.
He was looking for an advantage.
And he wasn't afraid to use intimidation.
Right.
Can you imagine?
I know, what must those producers have felt?
Right.
Like up against this giant.
Facing the possibility of being crushed.
But what about the consumers?
Right.
What about the oil industry itself?
So Rockefeller, he argued that this consolidation was actually a good thing.
Okay.
You know, more efficient,
Yeah.
lower prices for the consumer.
Okay.
He said Standard Oil was just bringing order to a chaotic industry,
But how can getting rid of competition be good for anyone?
except Rockefeller.
Exactly.
Right. And this is where the whole debate about monopolies comes in.
Yeah.
Antitrust laws. It's a conversation we're still having today.
Right.
How do you balance innovation and efficiency with the need to protect competition
Right.
and prevent a few people from having all the power?
It's like those tech giants today, right? Like
Totally.
Amazon and Google.
Yeah.
They're facing a lot of the same questions.
Right.
Standard Oil is like a warning sign
Yeah.
about what happens when corporations get too powerful.
Right. The need for some kind of regulation to keep things fair.
So while Rockefeller's building his empire, what about Ida Tarbell?
Okay, so she's not just watching from the sidelines.
Yeah.
She's taking notes, you know,
Yeah.
listening, observing,
Mm.
and everything she sees just confirms what she suspected about Standard Oil.
Right.
But remember, she's a journalist now,
Okay.
honing her skills,
Mm-hmm.
building a reputation.
So she's biding her time
Right. Waiting for the right moment.
to strike.
And that moment comes a few decades later
Okay.
when she launches this huge investigation into Standard Oil.
Yeah, the podcast mentioned how she spent years researching,
Yeah.
interviewing people, digging through records,
She was building a case,
like a legal case.
right, gathering evidence
Wow.
to expose the truth about Rockefeller's empire.
She was like a pioneer of investigative journalism, and her work set the stage for holding powerful corporations accountable.
It's pretty amazing.
Think about the courage it must have taken
I know,
to
right?
challenge someone like Rockefeller.
And on.
He was one of the richest, most powerful guys in the world.
Yeah, like taking on a modern-day tech giant.
She knew it was risky.
But she was driven by this sense of justice.
Yeah.
That people deserve to know the truth.
And it had a huge impact.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't she publish her articles in McClure's magazine?
Yes.
And they were a sensation.
Yeah, people were hooked.
All those details about Standard Oil's tactics,
Right.
their secret deals,
Mm-hmm.
all their manipulative stuff.
Like pulling back the curtain
In
on
the
fraud,
secret world.
letting everyone see how it worked.
It's like a superhero story, right?
Yeah. Ida Tarbell as the reporter.
Exposing the villain.
But it was more than just taking down Rockefeller.
Right.
She was looking at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Like, what allowed monopolies to exist in the first place?
So it wasn't just person.
No, it was about these fundamental questions.
Okay.
The role of corporations in society.
Mm.
The balance of power between businesses and the government.
Right.
The ethics of ambition.
Yeah. Questions we're still asking today.
Exactly.
So she really made a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Did her work actually lead to any real change?
It started this national conversation
Okay.
about corporate power
Mm-hmm.
and the need for some regulation.
Yeah.
It fueled the movement for antitrust laws
Right.
to prevent monopolies
Okay.
from hurting consumers.
So she was a catalyst for change.
Yeah, she helped shift public opinion
Mm-hmm.
and pave the way for the government to step in.
It's incredible,
Yeah.
but the fight wasn't over yet, right?
Oh, no, Rockefeller wasn't going down without a fight.
He had to protect his legacy.
Yeah, so he fought back, tried to discredit Tarbell,
Mhm.
defend his company.
But it was too late, right?
Yeah, he couldn't control the narrative anymore.
Public opinion had turned.
Yeah, even all his money and influence couldn't stop that.
It was a sign of the times.
Yeah, people wanted accountability.
Even the most powerful people weren't immune.
Right, so now it's a showdown
Ida Tarbell
with the truth on her side,
versus John D. Rockefeller.
determined to protect everything he built.
That's where we'll pick up next time.
Oh, this is getting good.
Last time, we were talking about Ida Tarbell exposing the truth about Standard Oil.
Right.
And Rockefeller pushing back, trying to save his reputation.
Yeah, it was getting intense.
Things were definitely coming to a head.
For sure. The public was catching on to Standard Oil's, shady practices.
Yeah.
This wasn't just rumors anymore. Tarbell had laid it all out.
All those years of research.
Mm-hmm. And her work really hit home for people who were feeling the effects of monopolies in their own lives.
So it wasn't just about oil.
No, it was this bigger struggle against corporate power.
Affecting everyone.
Exactly. And all that public outrage put pressure on the government to finally do something.
So they had to take action.
Yeah, in 1906, under President Teddy Roosevelt, the trust buster,
Oh, right.
the U.S. Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Standard Oil.
Wow. Using the Sherman Antitrust Act.
That's the one.
This wasn't just any lawsuit.
Oh, no, it was a landmark case.
That changed American business forever.
For sure.
So for those of us who aren't lawyers, what exactly was the government accusing Standard Oil of doing?
Okay, think back to all those ruthless things we talked about.
Like what?
Predatory pricing to drive out competitors,
Right.
secret deals with the railroads for special treatment,
Yeah.
and that whole vertical integration thing
Sure.
to control every part of the oil business.
So they were saying all of that violated the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Exactly. That law was meant to stop monopolies from hurting consumers.
So basically all of Ida Tarbell's work was paying off.
Oh, yeah. Her reporting was crucial.
It really shaped public opinion
Mhm.
and gave the government what they needed to go after Standard Oil.
It just goes to show how powerful investigative journalism can be.
Like David versus Goliath, but in real life.
Totally.
So what did Rockefeller say?
Should he just confess?
Right.
No way. He got the best lawyers he could find.
Of course.
Launched a whole PR campaign to protect his image.
So what was his defense?
Basically, he claimed Standard Oil got so big because they were efficient,
Okay.
innovative,
Mm-hmm.
not because they were doing anything illegal.
So he was saying they were actually helping people.
Yeah, lower prices, reliable oil supply.
Trying to spin it like he was a good guy.
Yeah, pretty clever, right?
Appealing to those American values.
Hard work, entrepreneurship.
But the court saw right through it.
The evidence was just too strong.
So what happened? What was the verdict?
Well, after years of legal battles, the Supreme Court finally ruled against Standard Oil in 1911.
Oh, wow.
They said the company had broken the law,
So they were guilty.
and they ordered it to be broken up
Broken up.
into 34 separate companies.
Wow. That's huge.
It was a massive win for the government.
What a precedent.
It sent shockwaves through the business world.
I mean, this one company, Standard Oil, was so big
It was massive.
that the government had to step in and break it apart.
It was a big deal.
So what happened to Rockefeller after all that?
You'd think he'd be ruined,
Right.
but he actually ended up even richer.
What?
All those new companies that came out of Standard Oil, they did really well.
Okay.
And Rockefeller still had a lot of stock in them.
So sometimes, even when you lose, you win.
It's crazy, right?
And what about Ida Tarbell? What happened to her?
She kept writing,
Okay.
talking about social justice, economic fairness.
She became this role model
Absolutely.
for all these young journalists.
Showing how you can use investigative reporting
Yeah.
to hold the powerful accountable.
It's inspiring.
She went up against a giant and won.
So what does all this mean for us today?
Why should we care about this old oil company?
All right.
It's because the questions it raises are still relevant.
Okay.
How much power should corporations have?
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep markets fair
Right.
so everyone has a chance?
And Ida Tarbell's story
It reminds us that we all have to play a part.
in keeping things in check.
We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix things.
We have to be informed
And, yeah,
and
thank-
speak up when something's wrong.
Exactly. And remember, this deep dive is just the start.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore.
Right.
Think about other industries. How have they dealt with monopolies? How has the relationship between business and government changed?
Right.
What can we learn from the past
Yeah.
to build a better future?
Keep asking those questions.
Keep learning.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.